What's up guys, welcome to Wasted Space, and we're back in Space Engineers, and today's design, much like the last design I put, was sort of inspired by what's been going on the stream with the planetary survival scenario, and trying to continue this thinking of a sort of planetary fleet, a fleet aimed at colonising a planet once you get planets available. So for those of you who were present at the stream on Friday, you guys will know we were playing around with drop pod concepts, stuff to get stuff quickly down to the planet's surface. But quickly being the sort of primary factor. I didn't want to do this whole slow descent thing with loads and loads of thrusters. I wanted something that was quick, sort of high impact sort of deployment. So we're going to dive straight into what I've built for this, and then I'll do a little sort of walk around of how exactly it all works. But we're going to kick off with literally a demonstration of this thing in action. So this is actually two separate ships. And this is also the second thing I built. I built a small ship variant of this first, and then kind of decided I wanted to do more with that before I sort of showed it off. So for today, we've got this version. So we're going to come into the back of the rearmost part of the ships. As I said, there are two ships here, two ships involved with this, and this is intentional. So this back ship is one of the two. We're going to open this, and because we're in creative mode, it's going to depressurize like that, and then you'll notice instantly repressurize. This is set up with the door sensors so that you can't, so that basically when you're leaving the place it depressurizes the whole thing, and then when you come in, of course, it's empty of air and you pressurize it back up when the door closes. But in creative mode, unfortunately, none of that actually works because it won't depressurize a room because it instantly fills up all the oxygen tanks. Anyway, we're going to jump into the driver's seat and get a bit of an idea of what the ship kind of looks like from here, but all we're going to do is, as you see, we're lined up with the planet in front of us, and we're going to drive forward, turn off the inertial dampers, and then about a few seconds in, let's stop the thrust here, because I know we're about to enter the natural gravity sphere. So this is entering the gravity well of the planet in front of us, and you can see the ship will start to shift a little bit. And when it does so, we're going to hit 5 to undock the front end. So about now is probably good, and then we're going to turn our inertial dampers on to pull away from it. And then we're going to press 2 to activate a jump for this ship. And that's going to jump this ship completely out of orbit of this planet and way away. And this again is the survival planet. So go over here. We're going to get a funny graphic even though we're in spectator view of the ship jumping. And we're also going to get, just over here, the front end of the ship now under the effects of gravity coming down towards the surface. So we're going to follow this down, and I'll probably switch to some pre-recorded footage as well because it's a bit of a pain to follow this in, but you'll see that's a very high impact landing. And then once it does land, it unfolds itself out with these legs ready to go. We've got a second stage going to come out in a second that is going to move those solar panels up, turn on the interior defense turrets, not really interior defense, but just a basic level of defense for the platform. And as you can see, we're all ready to go. And even though that was an incredibly violent impact, you can see it took off a couple of thrusters. Sometimes, depending on the angle of impact, it doesn't work quite as well as others. I think the idea would be to have someone piloting this on its way down to the planet. We do have a cockpit lined up in the right direction in here. But you get the idea. So you'd be in this cockpit at this point. You could jump out. You'd be, of course, we're not actually, our pilot is up there in our ship, wherever it's ended up. But you could jump out, and I'll give you a quick walk around. So you come out the cockpit here, and you can see we've got ladders up to this top floor, the top level that's now appeared, where we've got refineries, assemblers, oxygen generation, oxygen tanks, batteries, a jump drive to get back off the planet if you want to, medical bay, basically all the sort of necessities of first starting survival on a planet. And then we've also got, where is it, over here, an elevator to get up and down. So obviously this is raised quite high up in the air, but you're going to want a way of getting up and down. You also notice these legs might need adjusting for the curvature of the planet. So 5 of them are on the ground. This one over here could do with being a little bit longer, apparently. That's floating, but this is all stuff you could adjust specifically when you landed. And then we could go over to the lift on this end, and as you can see, that's all attached to a piston. So that whole staircase there goes up and down, comes down to ground level, where you can walk up onto the staircase, hit the button, and it will bring you up to the proper platform height. And then we've got a connector here, which is used for docking with the small ships. Now, if you remember, the satellite that I showed you in the previous video came with a number of small ships. So this docking port will be designed to be used with those small ships that are up on that satellite orbiting above. The other thing we've got that's not yet deployed, but should you need to change the angle of the solar panels, you do have a second set of rotors here, which are all named in the control panel to allow you to turn these rotors turn these solar panels to a point where they're properly lined up with the sun. So So look, I don't know where it is. It's over there at the moment, and the sun rotation is on in this world, so it is going to move. But these would need to be tilted slightly towards that just to fit things in. There you go, guys. You get the idea of what it is for today. There's not a huge amount to it. The difficult part was getting all of these moving parts to collide with the ground at that speed and still be intact afterwards. And there are no end of takes of this design where, far from coming in like that, where it's got a big impact, but it's still fine at the end. Solar panels are going everywhere, bits are flying off. There's a lot of trial and error again with this design, but I'm quite pleased with how it turned out. Very functional, not particularly aesthetically pleasing, but the end result it delivers, I think I'm quite pleased with. Now, the other thing I'll do, just as we're coming near the end of the video, is switch over to some footage of me using this on my planet's surface map as well. And the main difference between here and the planet's surface map is, firstly, here we are landing in a natural gravity environment on a spherical body. So there are certain impacts to that. You know, the legs aren't quite as stable as they should be. The angle is more important and harder to judge. It's more requiring of a pilot. Whereas on the planet's surface map, the gravity is much stronger. I have the gravity turned up quite high there just to test whether or not it's capable of coming into a surface with even more gravity than this. And as you can see, it survives pretty nicely over there as well. So finally, before we finish up, I thought I'd show you just sort of quickly how bits of this went together and how I'd arranged some of it, because there's a few things going on that aren't obvious from the outside. So firstly, this rear ship is very, very basic. I basically equipped it with a couple of jump drives so it's capable of jumping in and then immediately back out again. You can have both charged, it can jump in, drop off the planet's lander, and then return to its destination. It's got sufficient thrust that it can escape orbit, which is an important factor, and you'll notice that there's a couple of extra connectors on pistons back here. It's just to help refuel, reload the thing, or connect further bits and bobs to it. And then at the front here, there's a piston for this connector because it wouldn't merge up properly otherwise. So this way you can kind of, if you need to resupply the front end of it, you can extend that piston and connect the connector up. But that's the rear end. The rear end's not very complex at all. It's more about this front end. So you can just about see sort of the folding mechanism here, which is based off these two advanced rotors at the bottom, which, as you've seen, believe it or not, do not break on impact, and that's partly due to this sort of very long light armor front end that is supported on a set of wheels that kind of allow it to jiggle and absorb some of that impact. We've also got a sensor tucked at the end of this that's going to activate some inertial dampers of 50 meters. So this is not giving us much change in thrust, but what it does do is help it stay upright. And the other thing I've done to ensure that it stays upright is, just as it comes into landing, you'll notice it's actually got 3 gyroscopes on it. So just as it comes into landing, the same sensor that triggers the inertial dampers to come on, so it turns these inertial dampers to come on, also turns the gyro override on, but without setting any override directions. And what this does is hold the whole ship perfectly upright, or well, perfectly upright. It holds it at the angle that you impact the ground at, and it doesn't let it spin over sideways due to that impact. It holds it up for a little bit, and then about 4 seconds later it turns off to allow the legs, which as you've seen deploy really quite quickly, to then sort of stick out the side. So what I will do just finally is I can just go in here. I think even with it connected to the other ship, I should be able to just trigger this to unfold. So you can see these side sort of riggers come down very quickly to try and stabilize the whole craft, and then these other bits unfold with the ship attached to kind of to form this flat platform that of course is raised up thanks to the rotors. And the only other trick I've used here is you can put, this doesn't work with normal rotors, it only works with advanced rotors because of the round body. But you can actually put a plate, and this plate is attached to the bit that spins rather than the bit that stays still, over the top of the rotor, and that will move and line up as a walkway, even though it's not lined up sort of when it's all folded together. And then we've just got some pistons on the side with the wheels on the bottom again to sort of minimize the impact, that come down to act as the final legs. So you can see everything sort of comes out, splays out, and you can, obviously having seen the previous clips, but you can also imagine that just here, this bit here is cut off there, and it's the wheels that end up resting on the ground, all level with the rest of the pistons. And then finally, just to show that I have made sure that I've thought of this and it all works, here is the lift, which could probably do with speeding up. But hey, as you can see, goes up and down from that side and lifts this platform and staircase up and down from the point at which you can board. So there you go, guys. Kind of weird design, not very aesthetically nice, but I'm quite pleased with the functionality of it at least. I'm sure this is not going to be the last you've seen of the dropship style designs, and I'm reasonably pleased with being able to get it to slam into the ground, high impact value, really fast deployment, and then still stay in one piece at the other end. So thanks a lot for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please hit like, please hit share, it really helps me and the channel out. And otherwise, I'll catch you next time.